بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وارحمنا بهم. We discussed the definition of علم الأصول, and we said it's the science of knowing what? What do we know in that science? The science of the common elements. Common elements that are used in the process of derivation of the law. So it's the science of the common elements. That's the definition. And also, we said for every science, there is a subject matter. The subject matter of physics is what? Is nature. The subject matter of literature, Persian literature, Arabic literature, English literature, is what? Grammar. What is the subject matter of this science? Usul.
The evidence, we said, evidence.
Exactly. The subject matter are the things that you work on. You work on. What is the subject matter of agriculture? The farmer works on what? He works in the earth with the products, with the trees. So the subject matters of Usul al-Fiqh are what? What do we work on? Remember.
Quran, Hadith.
Evidence. Common evidences. Okay, can someone, just to refresh our memories, can someone give me one example of this? Common elements?
Public opinion or trustworthiness.
Exactly. And Nadeem, what else? Some of these common elements? Trustworthiness. The hujjiyah, the authority. The authority. Sometimes he's not trustworthy. He is trustworthy, but not everything a trustworthy says is correct. A trustworthy is also liable for mistakes, susceptible for mistakes. But the Sharia says it's an authority. We accept it. Hujjiyah. Or another example.
Sigha.
Exactly. Sighatul Amr, when there is a form, a scenario where the sentence, the hadith, the ayah is giving commands. Okay? اغسلوا with the wudu. اغسلوا. Or imsahu. This is commands. We take it as what? Huh? We take it as wajib. Unless otherwise, unless we find that no. His intention here specifically is not wujub. But we need qarina. We need an indication. We need a proof. And then whenever he says don't do, we take it as what? Prohibition. Unless we can find a way that he's not that strong. The prohibition is not the highest. It's below. Then when it becomes below, what do we call it? Karaha. So these are common elements. But the common evidences are the subject matter of this ilm, of Usul al-Fiqh. Remember, always distinguish between the two. And these are, some people said in the beginning are 4, but our author says no, they are not just 4. They are not just Quran, Sunnah, Ijma' and Aql. Because something else is going to be the subject matter which is not part of these 4, which is what? We work, the faqih works to get the law where is his source? Where does he go?
Text.
Yeah, he goes to Quran. If he finds it in the Quran, crystal clear, then he gets it from there.
The common
If
elements.
it's not crystal clear, he goes to Sunnah. And then sometimes ijma', consensus of the scholars that this is wajib, this is consensus. And sometimes aql tells you this is good or this is what. Like what? Aql, give me a scenario where the aql says you have to do that.
Not lying. Wash your hands.
No. Ibadat. Speak about ibadat. Wudu. Wudu. For the prayers, Islam says no prayers can be done without wudu. So he doesn't say wudu wajib. But I get it. He doesn't have to say wajib. He's telling me no student can attend the class without registration. What does that mean? It means registration is what? Mandatory. Okay? This is, I understand it through, because muqaddamatul wajib wajibah. The prelude, the prerequisite for what is mandatory also becomes mandatory. The prerequisite becomes mandatory too. This is aqli. This is, I understand it through aql. Okay? So these are four. But then the author we mentioned last time, he says there are other sources that you may derive laws through them, but they are not under these four categories.
Common elements. The procedure of the common elements.
Exactly. Al-usul al-amaliyya. Practical procedures. Why do we call them practical procedures?
We use them in every.
No. We use them in every that is common elements. Don't get.
When we don't have.
Exactly. We use them when we can't find under these four categories, we cannot find the answer. We come to practical ways of getting them. Procedural principles. Procedural principles. We resort to them when we do not find the answer. So Sharia tells me, listen, maybe I cannot cover everything. Maybe I can cover 70%, 60%. The rest, you go through this. Bring your mind, incorporate your aql, your reason. Through this process, you can find the answer. But however, we said the answer here, is it definite answer, 100%? It's not 100%. But Sharia says, I accept it from you. If you go through this procedure, I would accept that from you. Okay?
So do you have to, when you do the common elements, do you have to go in that order? I assume yes.
Yes.
Like that 1, 2, 3,
Absolutely.
4, and then 5.
It's in the order of importance. Number one, Quran. That's the main source, main evidence. Number two, hadith. Number three, ijma'. Number four, aql. These are four in the Shia tradition of Ahlul Bayt. In other traditions, they have 25 titles. Inshallah, if we advance in our studies, we're going to go through these. 25. Okay? They have. But we see no need to have these 25 because some of them, they don't get you the answer. Some of them, the answer, they get you the wrong answer, not the right answer. This is something that we would discuss later, inshallah. Now, so this is the difference. And the jurist, when he studies, the jurist, when he wants to begin the process of operation, surgery, to get the law, he works in two fields. One field or one prelude or premise pertains to the fiqh, to the fiqh here. The other one pertains to usul. Which one is fiqh? Now I want to derive a law. I have two premises, two preludes. Okay? Which one of them pertains in this process of derivation? I have two steps, two muqaddama, two preludes, two preambles. One of them is very specific, the other is common. Just like a surgeon, the example that I like to give, because it's very close to our situation. A surgeon, a mechanic has two types of tools. One are specific only for this situation. He does not use it for the second vehicle or second patient, only for this surgery. And then he disposes it, puts it on the shelf. Other tools are common. They have to be under his disposal. He used them in every surgery, in every procedure. Can you give me example of this or an example of that?
Usury for the specific. Riba, right?
Okay. What about it?
Father and son versus...
So what is the thing? Give me the title of it. Riba is the act.
Usury is haram.
No. So what do we call this?
Command?
Say something else.
Amr? Or no.
Hadith.
Oh.
Hadith.
Hadith.
Hadith text. Okay.
Actually, it's Quran, right?
أحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. It could be Quran, it could be Hadith. We call it text. Let's call it text. Okay? It could be Quranic text or Hadith, prophetic. Certain Hadiths, they apply to specific situation, only to usury, only to Ramadan, only to prayers, only to almsgiving, only to marriage, only to divorce, only to specific ones. You cannot use them in other. So the example that Dr. Ali gave, that the hadith says that usury is haram. Usury is haram. This is hadith. Okay? Or the Quran. أحل الله البيع وحرم. So his job is to study this hadith. What does he study about this hadith? When you get a hadith, let's speak about hadith. First, when you have a hadith, how do you handle it? What do you do with it?
Try to understand it.
First thing, try to understand it, to see whether it applies to your case or not. Sometimes some people, they bring hadith that does not even apply to this case. They don't even understand. There is no compatibility between them. They do, He's faqih, but he's bringing hadith which is not related to this case. He thinks it's related. But if you analyze it, it does not apply to this specific situation. In fiqh, they are very specific, very sharp, believe me. Very sharp. Okay? Only those sharp-minded can give you the right answer. Only the sharp-minded. So he would see, first of all, whether it applies or not. Second, what does he look? Where else he looks at this text?
Sanad.
What else he examines?
Sanad,
Exactly. Whether this hadith is authentic, not authentic, can we depend on it, or we cannot depend on it. This is not authentic. We throw it away. These things are studied in this specific text. Authenticity, applicability, whether it really applies to our situation or not. So he studies these. The second type of evidences, we call them what? We call them common. Why common?
Because they can be applied in different circumstances.
Exactly. So they are common elements. Such as, give me an example of that. You just said some of them.
Public opinion, trustworthiness, or no?
No specific.
No example?
No.
Oh,
Specific.
حجية خبر
عرفي.
الثقة الواحد. The authority, the value, the acceptability of the hadith that was narrated solo by one person. But he's thiqah, he's trustworthy. So we accept it because he's thiqah. This is called common elements. This common elements is used in every process of derivation. Therefore, it is called common. There is no situation where you bring the hadith and you are not using this حجية خبر الثقة. Or the other one, that أن ظهور الكلام حجة. The second one, that the apparent meaning of a text is binding, is acceptable. The apparent meaning, we give credit to the apparent meaning, unless otherwise. So when the Quran says, do something, we take it as what? What is the apparent meaning of do? Mandatory, wajib. What is the apparent meaning of don't do? Haram. Unless we can find something else, another text that explains this. Can you give me an example of that? We studied several scenarios in the past. Can you give me one? One of them is the hadith which says it is okay for a fasting person who is observing fast to submerge his head underneath water. Another hadith comes and says لا ترتمس في الماء وأنت صائم. Don't submerge. So here the first one says it's okay to submerge. And we take it's okay as what? Permissible. The second one says it is not okay. It is not okay. What does it mean? By itself, if you have no other text.
Then it's haram.
Haram. But because you have another text which says it is okay, then you translate this one, the first one, as what? As haram? Exactly. As karaha. But if there was no other text, we take this as haram. You don't do. This is why, my friends, many of our fuqaha and scholars today, if you open their risala, they tell you the forbidden things of a fasting person: food, drink, relationship with his spouse or wife, sexual relationship, and then he says irtimas taht al-ma, submerging one's body completely, the head, including head, not just the body, you can up to here. Why? Because they depend on what hadith? Which says don't. Neglecting the hadith that says it's okay. While others, like Sayyid al-Sistani, he says no, this is makruh. Because look at the opposite side also. The opposite side, we have a credible hadith, acceptable hadith, that says it's okay. So when he says here it's not okay, he meant it's makruh, not haram.
Said, are they saying it's haram because they go to the second one and they're practicing the caution,
Either that one, or they don't look at the second one as equally credible.
So one outweighs the
Exactly. The one that forbids and prohibits is stronger. So they take that one.
which we learned that you can't do that. They have
Exactly. Yeah. But some of them, because they differ, many of our scholars, they differ on the credibilities and the values and the authenticities of the hadith. This scholar says this hadith sahih, maqbool, acceptable. The other one says no, it's not acceptable. I did not reach that level of confidence in this hadith. So I drop it. I better drop it. This is where it comes from, the chain of narrators, some of them. This is why if you study Ilm al-Rijal, we have many encyclopedias written in Ilm al-Rijal. The science of the character of the narrators. Their character. They differ. Some of them, according to Najashi, he says, this guy, no doubt about him, I accept him honest. The other one says, no, I found some weakness in him. I'm not going to take him, you know.
So Maulana, in using both tools, specific than usul, what we are trying to do is first we look at the text and then see if they are reliable and understanding it. But then to go further, we use the common element to derive it, right? It's both. It's not like
It's both.
one or
No. It's both. See, he works hand in hand. But fiqh is not concerned with the common elements. Fiqh is concerned with this specific hadith, in this specific field. Only in this specific field. He's working on this area. Like doctors, surgeons, he's working on the kidney. He's not a heart surgeon. This is his area. This is the fiqh. He works specifically on a specific text. While the usul is general, bigger, wider picture. Okay? And we will come now and see the relationship between this and this. And why this one is needed for this. Otherwise, this one will be incomplete without this. We will come soon. So in fiqh, they study the text itself and its applicability to this situation, while in usul, they do not study the text specifically for this situation, no. They study the common elements of it, where it can apply to many situations, not just one situation. Okay? So he works on عناصر خاصة وعناصر مشتركة, on specific elements, here common elements. This is the difference. Now, someone would ask, why do we waste time studying usul? At the time of the Imams, there were no usul. There were only fiqh. Why do we study usul now?
The Imam is not available.
They were available.
Oh, I'm saying afterwards.
Yeah. So during their time, they were available. Someone comes to him, Yabna Rasulullah, I'm going for hunting today. Is this okay or not? The Imam says to him, if you are going for leisure and fun, it's not okay. If you are going for provision and business and work, either to eat or to sell for your family, then it is okay. The answer would come very clear. So they don't need this process. This is a process, my friends, to get to this. So when you have someone giving you the answer, why do you have to go through all this headache, you know? This came after the time of the Imams. But with their approval, they said at the time of our absence, you don't have direct access to us, you go through this process. When you come to a situation where there is no hadith that is specifically and directly addressing your question, then you go to this process to find the answer.
So they set the stage pretty much for what's going to come after.
Absolutely. And they spoke about these elements, by the way. We spoke procedural principles. They mentioned them. Ihtiyat, bara'ah, they did mention them. But they didn't practice them because they knew the answer. They knew the right answer. They left it for us when we don't have direct access to them to get the right answer, so we go through this process. Now, let me ask you, what does usul represent to fiqh? What is the relationship? Is it the relationship of a father to a son, a neighbor to his neighbor, a boss to his employee? How do you see it yourself? What does this one mean to that one? Usul means to fiqh.
There's a dependency So therefore, if it's dependent, then it's
Meaning that one dependent on this? This is one of a meaning. But I need put it in a more general term. You are right, but also we need some elaboration. Put it in a scientific terms. They say that usul to fiqh represents the science of logic to other sciences, to other majors, to other disciplines. What does science of fiqh represent? Mantiq, logic. By the way, we must study logic, by the way, believe me, because many of these issues we don't understand them without studying logic. Mantiq, we must study mantiq, okay? Al-mantiq, which is logic. Inshallah, we study if we continue the huh? Yeah, great. It's a very great book, and we use it not just for fiqh, we use it for many other, This is mantiq straightens your mind, sharpens your mind. If people study mantiq, they don't speak nonsense anymore. They don't speak nonsense. Mantiq is logic. Teaches you logic. Okay? So, what logic represents to other sciences, this science of usul represents to fiqh. So what does logic represent to other sciences? That your thinking has to be what? Help me.
In order? Or
Exactly. Or rational. Rational. It teaches you procedures of reasoning. Let's write this one. Procedures of reasoning. Logic teaches procedures of reasoning. How to think. How to think rationally. Many people in the society, what makes someone intellectual and someone non-intellectual? Procedure of reasoning. The way they think. Rationality. The way they put things into perspective. This is the difference between someone who's intellectual and someone who's not intellectual. They have logic. Their thinking is systematic, organized. Okay? And so in the science of logic, so I want you to write down the science of usul is the logic of jurisprudence. The science of usul is the logic of jurisprudence. Fiqh, meaning fiqh, jurisprudence. The science of usul plays the same role that the science of logic provides or plays for other sciences. So it is the logic of jurisprudence. What does that mean? It means if you don't study usul, can your fiqhi thinking be logical? No. It is going to be exactly the opposite of logic, which is illogical and chaotic. And this is what we see today in many scholars on both sides in the Middle East. They issue fatwa which is illogical. Like the one who said, It was a scandal 7 years ago. He said they had a problem in Egypt, you know, foreign men and women sitting in one room because they were non-mahram to each other, which is not allowed. Closed door room, you put a, you know, stranger man sitting to a stranger next to her. So someone from Azhar came with a brilliant idea. He said, wow, I have a solution. What is your solution, Maulana? He said she breastfeed him. No, I'm serious. I'm serious, wallah. This was, I mean, Google it, it's in the New York Times. There was an article about it. It was a huge scandal 7, 8 years ago. Remember it, Nadeem?
Yeah.
He said she breastfeed him and he becomes, you know, like her son, mahram. And they can, khalas. And you know, Islam was ridiculed for many years because of this in Egypt.
Muslims would ridicule Islam.
Muslims, of course. And when they said to him, Maulana, where do you bring? He said, this is a hadith. A hadith, you know. So I saw a hadith. But he did not study the hadith. The hadith says, even the Quran says, the period of nursing is only 24 months. 2 years. والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين. 2 full years. Beyond that is mamnu'. Beyond that, it's illegal for a mother, non-shar'i, it's unacceptable for a mother to breastfeed and nurse her son after the age of 2. It's in the Quran. This guy, he comes and he says, you know, why? Because they don't study logic. If they study logic, their thinking is going to be logical and they don't speak this nonsense. Okay? And so this is ilm al-usul. Ilm al-usul is important because it straightens and fixes the process of thinking when it comes to fiqh. You need it. Otherwise, you're going to face a huge pool of ahadith conflicting each other. You know, one of them says halal, one of them says haram, one of them says wajib, one of them says... You need this process of thinking. You can navigate safe. You don't fall victim to this chaos that we have. Okay?
Say it's a question for you. In terms of this logical order of reasoning, the key to this is if there is fiqh that's in the Quran that's very clear, it's muhkam, right? It's very clear.
These are very few.
They're very few, but
Very
those
few.
you don't apply usul to those, correct?
No, you don't. When it is very few and very clear, you don't have to go to usul.
Right.
It's very, you use your brain to understand them. Still you use your logic to understand them. Still, I'll show you some examples. Even with those clear ones, you still need logic to understand them. You still need to incorporate your logic to understand them.
But in many instances, say the fiqh sometimes isn't rational to our understanding. So how do you make it logical?
We cannot say it is not rational because we mentioned Shar' does not clash with aql. Religion does not clash with reason. We mentioned this earlier. If we see a place where they clash, one of them has to be fixed. Otherwise, they don't clash. And we always say this. We are different from other madahib. We say, كل ما حكم به العقل حكم به الشرع. Everything reason endorses and accepts, religion is going to accept. While others, they say no, put it otherwise. Put it the other way around. Say, كل ما حكم به الشرع حكم به العقل. Everything religion endorses, reason we tell them no. Reason comes before religion. Reason comes before religion. So we cannot say they are not rational. No. We have to understand their rationality. We have to understand it. So logic establishes, logic is important because logic establishes, universal what? Methods of what? Of understanding and deduction. This is how they defined logic. علم المنطق. علم المنطق is the logic, is the science that establishes universal methods of deduction. One of these, so Dr. Ali, logic teaches us methodology. And we need methodology in fiqh. You need methodology in deriving the law. If you don't learn methodology, it becomes chaotic. You need to learn methodology. Okay? They said, can we give example of some things that we study in logic? Can we give example? They say yes. One of them called qiyas. Qiyas is, we study this in logic. The English meaning of qiyas, it is, syllogism. Syllogism, what does syllogism mean? It means deductive what? Reasoning. Deductive reasoning. Syllogism means an argument, the conclusion of which is supported by two premises. Two premises. An argument, we reach a conclusion through two premises. One of them, number one, we call major premise or term. Second is what? Minor premise. And the third is what? Conclusion.
So does it say two premises or three
Yeah,
premises?
no. We have to have two premises in order to get to the conclusion.
Oh, okay.
You need a major premise with a minor premise so we can reach a conclusion. I'll give you an example of that. One of them, this is very simple. One of them says, this is a major premise. All A is C. Then the minor premise says, all B is C. Then the conclusion is what? You tell me the conclusion.
A is B.
So all A are all B.
So A, B, C are the same.
All A
No.
and B are C.
C, yeah.
A is-
All A is C. And all B is C.
All A is B.
So,
No, there's no connection.
therefore,
No, there is a connection. C.
the conclusion is all B is C.
No,
That's
all
the
A
minor.
is
No.
B.
All,
B
all
is,
A is B.
B is A. A and B are the same.
We confused them.
All A and B are the same.
All A, C.
Yeah,
Listen.
C is the connector.
All A, B, C. All A is C.
Right.
And all B,
Did you mean all A is
no. I think I made a mistake. All B is A. All B is A.
Yeah, there you go.
All B is A. and all B is A, this means what? All
B is C.
exactly. All B is C. All B is C. Give me an example of things that we reach. I need each one to give me a simple example. In Arabic we say this is مقدمة الكبرى. See, مقدمة كبرى. This is مقدمة what? صغرى. And this is what conclusion? نتيجة? نتيجة.
That's too easy.
نتيجة. نتيجة. Give me an example of that. Let me remove here. Give me an example of one. Give me an example of major premise. Give me an example of major premise. And then minor premise and then conclusion.
This is,
Yeah, you give me an example. Huh?
Ibadat?
No, 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 no. Logic. This is logic. Has nothing to do with religion. Logic, logic. Logic.
Major premise. That's a tough one.
No, there is one, but it's a tricky one. Little Bear is the son of the Big Bear.
Little bear. This is the major. Major. Little bear is the son of.
the Big Bear.
Okay. Little bear is the. And then minor.
But the Big Bear is not the the father of the
No,
small
no.
bear.
This is not.
Confusing.
No.
I think on that same track. So Little Bear is the son of Big Bear, and then the Little Bears.
No.
Little Bear.
And the Big Bear is not the
No.
father of
No. You have to give me major. You are confusing. I need major and minor. Major. Okay. Listen. Major. It has to be major because it's named major. You have to say every. So every American is, let's say, handsome. Okay? Nadim, this is minor. Nadim is American. So the conclusion is what? Nadim is handsome. So you have to have major, apply it to the minors, you get the conclusion. So Nadim is handsome.
So like all cars have wheels, and a Mercedes is a car. Or
So the Mercedes has it. Or what we use usually, typically, we use this in the house. This is how we learn it. That every scholar is respected. Ali is a scholar, so the conclusion is what? Every scholar is respected. Ali is a scholar. Ali is respected. So you have to respect him. Ali is respected. Give me from physics.
what goes up must come down.
Start with F.
Every object that goes up must come
No.
down.
Every object is a matter.
Every object.
No, this is not. No, it can't be. This is not right. This is not right. No.
Every
I'll give you everything. See, it has to be every in the beginning because major. Every thing expands by heat is, what do we call it? Expands by heat, becomes a matter. Becomes a matter, yeah. Metal.
No.
Metal. Iron expands by heat. Then
Iron is a metal.
iron is a metal. So you have to have major one. Applies to smaller. Now let's do Shar'i one. Huh? This is we use it in different in many of our answers we use this one. Every كل مسكر حرام. Every, whether it's a drink or food or whatever, every intoxicant is forbidden. Every intoxicant is haram, forbidden. Alcohol is an intoxicant, therefore the conclusion is,
Alcohol is haram.
or for that matter, let's say, I don't know, drugs. What drugs? What?
Heroin.
Heroin, let's say. If heroin is intoxicants, muskir, intoxicants, then heroin is intoxicants, then because we have this major premise.
And this is where people fit in smoking, right? Into this.
If it becomes really intoxicant, not dangerous, there is difference. The hadith says muskir, intoxicant, takes away. Yes,
the mind.
yes, yeah. Okay? Or we have another premise here that كل شارب خمر فاسق. Every person drinks alcohol or wine. Let's say alcohol, because this is general. Is sinful. Let's say X, this is the minor. X person is, drinks alcohol, then this X person is sinful. We apply qiyas. When we advance in our studies, we're going to study this in details, and we're going to find qiyas. We don't use it in derivation, except certain types of qiyas acceptable. Not all of them. Not all of them.
Why is it not acceptable? Sir?
This is a whole lecture, believe me. I can spend a whole hour telling you why all types are not acceptable, except certain ones that they call it mansusul illah, because the reason has been presented to us. Then in that case you can use qiyas. But if you don't know the reason, then we cannot apply qiyas. And this is one of the points of disagreement among Shia and Sunnis, among Imam al-Sadiq and Abu Hanifa. Because the first one who introduced qiyas into fiqh was Abu Hanifa. He is the leader of Madrasatul Qiyas, the school of syllogism. He's the leader who invented this school, and he brought it into religion. We study that in details on higher levels.
Imam
Abu Hanifa.
Imam Sadiq was against qiyas.
Against qiyas, of course. Inna deen Allah la yuqasu bil uqul. The faith of God, we do not apply qiyas to it. And he gives him an example. He tells him, which one is more important, prayers or fasting? He says, fasting. Salatu amud ad-din. He says now women when they experience monthly period, when they are clean, after that, should they make up their prayers? No. But should they make up their fasting? Yes. While prayer is more important than fasting, but they don't make up prayers. Which one is more severe? Death or murder or fornication?
Murder.
Murder. But when you go to the stand box, witness box, for the murder, you need 2 witnesses. For fornication, which is less criminal than death, you need how many? 4. Okay? The other thing that we study in logic, beside qiyas, we study istiqra'. What is istiqra', my friends? Induction. Induction. Istiqra' is called induction. Beside qiyas, we study istiqra'. Istiqra' is induction, my friends. Istiqra'. Istiqra', which is in. What does induction mean?
Opposite of deduction, so you take from different places and you put it together.
Induction, you study the whole case in order for you to establish a pattern. Istiqra', observing a class of facts, observing or studying a class of facts as an evidence for a proposition about the whole class, to set the rule for the whole class. Okay? I say that again. Observing a class of facts as an evidence for a proposition about the whole class, to find a pattern. This is istiqra'. And istiqra' has different types. There is complete istiqra', there is incomplete istiqra', and that is, inshallah, when we study usul, we get to that one. This is the reason we need to study logic in order for us to be able to, for our mind and reason to be corrected. So in the process of derivation, we don't go left and right. It's the fixation. It fixes the process of reasoning. Usul fixes the process of reasoning. If you study usul very well, you will be number 1 in fiqh. Those who did not study usul, they fail in fiqh. They fail in their fatwa. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.